Hi everyone, it's Deb here from Oasis. Just wanted to share a video today because the 25th of November is the UN's International Day to End Violence Against Women and Girls. The United Nations note that 1 in 3 women worldwide experience physical or sexual violence, mostly by intimate partners. It's a human rights violation. The immediate and long-term physical, sexual, mental consequences for women and girls can be devastating, including serious disability and death. And this is why the United Nations some years ago created this specific day to think about this issue. Now, the first thing I'm going to acknowledge is that the extent of this issue for women and girls does not mean that we deny at Oasis the suffering of others. It's not pie. If we have some of it, doesn't mean you've got less of it. Oasis is an inclusive space and hopes that one day we don't require any special days at all, because we live in a world, we hope in the future, of compassionate, shared humanity. But that space doesn't exist today, and the data tells us that. It's also evident because the government acknowledged that we need a determined strategy around this issue, because they call it an epidemic of violence against women and girls. We welcome this actually, because we can see really clearly in our work that this is a distinct need and one that needs a specific focus. Violence negatively affects women's general well-being and prevents women from fully participating in society. It impacts family, community and society at large. It has tremendous costs to the public purse, and despite increasing legislation, not enough is done. It often goes unpunished. We have international and UK strategies around violence against women and girls, and we welcome the fact that government in their latest Forbes strategy have acknowledged that misogyny is a key issue. So what is misogyny? Well, the dictionary definition is an ingrained dislike or contempt for women. The word ingrained is key here, because ingrained means that it leaches into our unconscious biases. We may amplify misogyny by perpetuating unhelpful stereotypes, for example, by victim blaming, or by failing to challenge others. And victim blaming, as we've seen in our society in the recognition of some of the issues that come up, can be as in the form rather of women being told they can't wear short skirts or go out and get drunk, rather than people who harm women being told you shouldn't harm women, because actually we should be able to live freely. We shouldn't have to face the risk of harm. We might amplify misogyny by making jokes about women's voices, by denigrating women's voices, by disallowing them to have their voices. And this is absolutely exacerbated when we think about intersecting identities, class, race, colour, all of the things that create further oppressions of women's voices in our society. As Audre Lorde put it in The Master's Tools Will Never Dismantle the Master's House, in a world of possibility for us, all our personal visions help lay the groundwork for political action. In our world, divide and conquer must become define and empower. We believe that misogyny is ingrained in our culture to the extent that it becomes difficult for women to challenge it. It is subtle and it is nuanced very often. But we have to recognise these subtleties and nuances. We have to look for them. As Audre Lorde puts it, we must define them. And we must understand that we can't always walk in someone else's shoes. We must listen to people when they say to us, that harms me and I find that harmful. Because if we aren't having their experience, we can't necessarily say that it doesn't. It's essential that we do this, make this definition, as Audre Lorde says, because we can innocently fuel harmful thoughts and behaviours. We know these harms are real. We only have to look at the published domestic homicide reviews for Kent between 2011 and 2018. 2/3 of them are women who've been murdered by someone who's meant to love them. At Oasis, we want to celebrate all human beings for the contribution they make to our communities and society. We want to celebrate the women who step up and say no more, or who've been able to fight to have a voice and who've struggled to raise children in adversity. We want to acknowledge the women that are still at risk and suffering. We want to celebrate men for treating women as equals, true equals, for respecting what women contribute to the world and allowing women their voices, for calling out behaviours that exacerbate the issues. We congratulate those who understand that it isn't straightforward being a woman in our society. We especially appreciate when you understand that our recognition of the suffering of women is not a denial of the suffering of anyone else. The 16 days of action starts today. This is specifically a recognition of the issue of gender-based violence. Gender-based violence means harm that is done as a result of the exertion of power in a patriarchal system. We need you to trust us when we say that this is a real issue in our society. It doesn't mean we're denigrating anyone. It does mean we're asking everyone to stand up and back the right for everyone to live free from harm. Our daughters, our mothers and our sisters shouldn't feel at risk on our streets or in our homes. So join us over the coming 16 days. Dive into some of our work, into the blogs, into the podcasts, into the posts, and carry these messages out into your community. Thank you for listening.